Hello and welcome to Too Fast, Too Forever. There's all kinds of family. We chose this one. Okay, this is very exciting for a very specific subset of audience that I don't know if we have. Episode 311. Hell yeah, man. Amber, Color of My Energy, other songs, who knows. But also, weirdly, in terms of the number thing, Season 13, Episode 11, so it's really 1311, so there's two 311s here. It's blowing my mind, man. Fast and Furious, Lap 13. I'm Joey Lewandowski.
I'm Joe, too, and this episode is brought to you by Tunnel X, secure private conversation for everyone. Tunnel X provides a special place for your important conversations. You'll love conversing on Tunnel X. Shout out to Tunnel X.
Well, shout out to Tunnel X and welcome to Too Fast, Too Forever. With us today to talk about that tunnel, that trip from Mexico to the U.S., we have the co-host of the recently completed Con Air, the podcast, also the host of Deep Blue Sea, the podcast, among many other fine shows, friend of our friend, Mark Hoffmeyer, making his debut on our show, Mr. Jay Cluitt. Hello, Jay.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us for talking about Fast and Furious, a franchise I know that you maybe kind of like, but isn't necessarily your jam. So thank you for, indulging us and watching one of these movies.
A franchise I have seen.
That's it. That's where we draw the line. Okay. It is a movie.
Yeah, so before we go any further, what is your history? Have you seen all of these? If you want to do your rankings now or later, that's totally up to you. But, what's your history? Have you seen all of them, some of them, one of them? Where do you fall? When was the first time you saw them? Have you seen them in theaters, or as you call them, cinema? Hit us with your history with the Fast and Furious.
Okay, so when these films first came out, I dismissed them, I would say. I saw them as being well, these are just silly car movies. I hate cars. I know there are people who say they like the car films of these, the action films of these. They're like car guys. I'm not a car guy. I despise cars with passion. I can drive. We have a car. I drive it as little as possible. I'm a cyclist, but I'm not I don't take up the road. I don't wear lycra. I'm not like one of those horrible people that weeds through traffic. I cycle to get to work and get home again. It's just my preferred.
You're a functional cyclist.
Exactly, it's my preferred method of transportation. So when I saw these coming out, I was like, well, those films aren't for me. I'm just gonna leave those where they are. That's
doesn't sound like there's many bicycles in these movies. Exactly.
Right, a precious few, I would say. Although I've got my fingers crossed for the next film. We'll have them. So when they first came out, I was like, no, they're these are really car films and racing films, and I'm just this. I'm just gonna let these people enjoy these films and not ignore them. Fast 5 came out, and it started people well, this is a great film. It's made Dwayne Johnson's in it now. It's great, and I'm still I don't think so. This isn't for me. I used to host a show called The Lambcast, which is the official podcast of the large association of movie blogs, The Lamb, which covered any kinds of aspects of film. I don't host it anymore, but it's still going. I was a guest on that for an episode on Furious 6. They needed a guest. They were short on guests. I was like, fine, I'll take a bullet for this podcast. I'll go and see this silly little movie. And I saw it, and I hated it. And I went to my podcast. Bear with me.
Okay.
So I watched it. I watched it. And I really appreciate at the start of Furious 6 they had the recap of the 5 films prior to it. That was for me. That was my first.
Yes. Yeah.
So I loved that happened. But I just this terrible films. It went and was on the podcast for 7 because I'm a glutton for punishment. Still didn't like it. But Statham, big fan of Statham. Statham's my guy. So.
Okay.
But then I took over the podcast as the host. And we did a Fast and Furious franchise look back when 8 came out. So all 8 films. And I went back and listened to that podcast prior to this today, or I tried to. I listened to the first hour and I couldn't take it anymore because I was so negative. And it was so painful to listen to. No one should go back and listen to their old podcasts if it's on films that they hated then, but have come around to now. Because during that rewatch, or since then, and getting to know my co-host Mark better, he has enlightened me on how to enjoy not just these films, but any film I've disliked. Mark is a very positive person. You've had him on before.
He definitely is, yeah.
He's a fan favourite, I know, because he always finds great things to talk about in films. There are some films he doesn't like, but he will find good things to talk about them. And he's kind of taught me how to do that. Any listeners who are like, oh, we've got Mark co-host, this is going to be another Mark episode. I'm not Mark Hoffman. Not by a long way. On our show, he's the colour commentary And I'm like the commentary guy, and he's the color guy. He's like the humor, and I'm the straight down the middle. Like I'll try and drag him back on track.
Well, we can use this episode as a way for you to set the record straight, and you can have a modern retelling of your Fast and Furious experiences. And so, if you like these movies more now than you did when you did that, look back, you can then look back at this episode in a few years from now and be like, yeah, straight down the middle, how I felt about it.
The films I've seen since then, I have at least liked them all. Like,
Good.
I've watched 5 since like 5 onwards. The ones I had seen and dismissed, I've since gone back and rewatched, and the new ones have come out. I've liked them, but I have never gone back before. Like 1, 2, and 3 do not interest me at all in going back and rewatching them.
Had you seen this one, number 4, before, like, this week? Had you seen this one before? Or
Yes,
no?
I watched it for that franchise look back when 8 came out.
Gotcha.
But
Okay.
That's the only time I've seen 1, 2, 3, and 4. Was that?
Oh,
then.
okay,
And
cool,
now I've
got
watched 4 again, but I don't see any reason to go back and watch the first 3 because from what I can tell, they are car movies and they are not for me.
But if you come around on the later ones, it's like
Yes.
rewatching, like the first iteration, the first couple episodes of a TV show that maybe got better and found its way.
Right. I haven't gone back and watched Parks and Rec season 1 again.
There you go.
It's tough, yeah. Like, there are certain things where I'm just like, I know when I started liking a thing, and like I don't want to go back. Although part of me, like, the same thing, like, New Girl took a long time for me to warm up to it. Parks and Rec took a while. Seinfeld took a while. And I think it's partly like they're figuring out the characters and I'm also figuring out the show. But I do wonder if I go back and like watch like season 1, 2 of Seinfeld, which I didn't really like, if I would like it more. Probably. I might not like it as much as like later seasons, but you might surprise yourself. So, okay. So do you have rankings or do you not have rankings? Do you not feel comfortable to rank these movies?
I have a ranking, but this is based on I've only seen most of these films once.
That is
That's
totally
fine.
fine.
Yeah.
This is going through when I watched them. I went to my letterbox and I basically reminded myself of what I ranked them there. So start at the bottom.
So you can either work at top down or bottom up, either way.
I'll go bottom up. So Tokyo Drift is my number 11. I gave that a 1 out of 5 on that.
Oh, okay. You have to revisit. It's so much fun. You have to revisit.
Well, listening to the episode I recorded on that, I was like, when Han died, like that felt like so tacked on and like out of nowhere, and like a really random decision. It's a real stupid take to make, I think. But I just couldn't get past. I hated Little Bow Wow in it. I hated Lucas Black's accent. But after I found out that's actually his real voice.
Yes.
I thought
He's not doing an accent.
I thought he was doing like a Nick Cage in Con Air kind of thing where he's just putting something on. But no, that's how he speaks. Number 10, I have Tokyo Drift. No, I have Too Fast and Furious. Don't tell Mark. I guess I know that's his favorite, but he doesn't know that's how low that down. That is my ranking. And then The Fast and the Furious is number 1. Sorry, it's number 9. I give that one 2 out of 5.
Oh,
Too Fast and Furious gets a 1.5. Then we go to number 4. Today's one, Fast and Furious. Is one number 8. Number 7, I have Hobbs and Shaw. Number 6, I have number 6. That ties up nicely.
Okay.
Furious 7, number 5. F9 is number 4. Fast X is number 3.
Wow.
Fate of the Furious is number 2, and then Fast 5 in the traditional slot for most people, I think, is number 1.
Yes.
Fate being that high is wild.
Yeah, we've actually never had someone have Fate be just their number 1. We've had someone have Fate tie. Who had Fate? Brian Silliman said 7 and 8 are tied for his favorites. I put them down as 1.5, but we've never had someone say Fate of the Furious is their number 1. 2, like Joe was saying, I don't even know if anybody had even had
And in the top
2.
half.
I think it's usually like a 6, 7, 8. So you having it number 2 might be you might be the second biggest fan of that movie.
I'll take it.
So knowing these rankings, how many of those, and if the answer is 0, we will accept it. How many do you say you actually like? You would say I like that movie.
3 of them have a little heart next to them letterboxed. 5, 8, and 9 have little hearts
Perfect.
next to them. So 10 doesn't, despite the fact that I've got it ranked higher than 9. But there we go. So, and the reason I've got 8 so high is for one scene, and that's Statham on a plane with a baby.
With baby, yes.
Uncle Statham is the scene. So yeah.
All right, so we're going to before we talk about this movie, I'm gonna get to know you a little bit better.
Sure.
I know you from Con Air, the podcast. 39 episodes of that out, plus some bonus episodes in between. Go check that out, or Deep Blue Sea, or whatever. But I'm gonna ask you some either/or questions. We're also gonna do a character quiz. So you're gonna find out which Fast and Furious character you are.
Okay.
I have some stuff hidden, and I need to unhide some of these. But let's get going. Okay.
So I think if there's a good answer for what Fast and Furious character it could be, I don't know. If there's
You don't know
I don't know
who's a possibility, bud.
I don't know how I want that to turn out.
So they're more sort of weird questions. Some are not necessarily either or; they're more open-ended. But in the first movie, there's a very minor scene or a very minor line in a memorable scene that Joe and I have clung to in terms of loving this. And so, if you'll remember, Brian and Mia are doing the dishes after dinner, and Vince, sort of the aggro guy, comes in and is kind of bullying Brian. And Mia asks him, "Hey, Vince, what's the name of that restaurant you want to take me to?" And then he tells her, and she says to Brian, "Oh, you can take me there." And it's like a real reversal, like, "Fuck you, Vince, I'm going with this new guy that you hate." Blah blah blah.
Sure.
The way that she describes the restaurant is having wood tables, little red candles, picadillo, and food all over the place. So if we were saying to you, Jay, thank you so much for being on the show. Next time you're in the States, next time you're in the New York area, let's take you out to dinner. We're going to thank you. There's a great restaurant. It's got these wood tables. It's got these red candles. It's got food all over the place.
Picadillo.
If we describe a restaurant as having food all over the place, what conjures up in your mind's eye? What do you think that is? What are you expecting? Is it good? Is it bad? How do you picture that? Food all over the place.
My brain's going in two directions. The first, which is they're using food as decoration. I don't think that's correct. I don't think there's literally food on the walls. But I think the more likely one is like a tapas place.
Yeah.
When you're sat down,
That
they just
works.
bring you or a small plates kind of thing. So when you're sat down, there is food everywhere because you've got like 20 plates in front of you. But yeah, food all over the place is a strange way to describe a restaurant.
Yeah, we don't think that they knew what that means.
Mark always likes to talk about the film Shark in Venice, a film I've seen and loved, where William Baldwin, I think it stars William Baldwin and Scarlett Johansson's sister. And there's, but it's a remake of Indiana Jones and The Last Crusade, but with more sharks. Basically, it's the same plot, but with more sharks. It's a ridiculous film. Everyone should see it. It's fantastic. It's our longest episode of Deep Sea Podcast. Just me and one guest talked about it for over an hour and a half. So there's one scene in that where Baldwin and Johansson are walking through a market, and he's like pointing at something and goes, "Oh, look at those thingies, and look at those thingies, and look at those things." And it's clear that this is Mark's point. It's clear that he thought they were gonna like put some music over that or dub over it, and that wasn't gonna be the dialogue. But that's just the dialogue they kept. And like saying there's food all over the place feels that like that kind of thing where it's like, this isn't going to be a line that makes it into the film. This isn't like real. This isn't how people talk and describe restaurants.
No. It makes sense. Yeah, that it definitely does feel like filler. Like you're like, okay, they'll dub something over or just cut this part out. Like I'm just keeping it going in the moment.
So now in Furious 7, which, reflecting back to your rankings, is your fifth favorite, right there in the middle. Not a little heart, but you might remember there's a scene in the middle where they're stealing that chip from the car up in the tower. They drive the car from tower to tower.
Yep.
But at the beginning of that scene, they have Roman distract the room by just shining bright like only Roman Pierce can. So, Jay, we say, we need your help for this heist. Joe and I are going to steal something from a very bad guy. We need you to shine bright like only Jay Cluitt can. We need you to sing a song a cappella style to a room full of strangers. What song are you singing that's either so good it's breathtaking and captivating, or so bad that people can't take their eyes off you? What song is that?
Ooh, I've never done karaoke. I've never sung in public.
In the shower, what's your go-to in the shower, bud?
I Can't Dance by Genesis comes to mind.
Okay.
It has the lyrics of I Can't Sing, because I can't sing. See, this is going to be a car crash moment. This is going to be drawing attention for all the wrong reasons. I was once at like a summer school kind of thing where it was a week-long thing, and then the last day, the last evening, it was like a night out kind of thing, and this guy went from table to table and pulled one person up from each table, and so there were 6 tables. We were on the last one, so he picked up, and he got to mine. And he's like, looked like he was going to go for a friend of mine. I was like, he's going to get Tom, and then he pulled me up, and I was like, oh god. And I realized I should have done what the person at the table before me did, which when they got pulled up, they ran away. They ran out of the room. But no, I was pulled up, and it was a dance competition. Where they kept on playing music, and then they instructed everyone to and now do a little dance to show off. And I had a nosebleed.
You just got nervous and had a nosebleed?
I just had a full-on nosebleed.
Oh, poor Jay.
The next morning, so I didn't dance, because I don't sing, I don't dance. It's not something I know how to do. I missed that day of school. And like the next day was like a presentation, and when I went down to collect something, someone from the crowd like, "Hey, why didn't you dance last night?" I was like, I don't dance. I don't know." It was just like that's what's going to happen here. Everyone's going to be distracted, like offering me medical help because I've started bleeding profusely from the face. Whatever song
A
I
nosebleed would
I try
help
and
though.
sing,
That would be distracting. I would appreciate that. That
it's
would
going to go
get some.
everywhere.
Yeah, it's gonna
I've
get
been
some
hospitalized
attention.
for a nosebleed before. It comes out of that. So actually, when I cycle to work, I do often sing "One Day More" from Les Mis, doing all the different parts, all different voices. So yeah, "One Day More." I'll do this show-stopping number with all the different parts of "One Day More."
Honestly, if you get a bloody nose in front of a room full of people, that's gonna could be enough distraction for us
That's gonna
anyway. So
count.
like, even if you like,
That's
you
what
know,
I'm saying.
rehash
Yeah.
that. One more open-ended question for you. It's also from Furious 7. There is a woman described as No Knees Denise. They say, Ryan says to Roman, the only thing I've seen you take down is No Knees Denise at prom. And he says, really, Brian, you're going to do that right now? If you hear a person being described as having no knees, what does that mean to you? We're asking these questions because really we have no answers and we want answers. So if they're weird, if you can't figure out why we're asking these, that's the point.
So their legs either don't bend or they don't have kneecaps. Like
Okay.
so either the functionality or the actual physical knee is missing. What's worse? What's I'm gonna say that she has functioning knees, but there's just like no visible kneecap. She's got like a knee that's like if you look at her like in silhouette, the leg just looks straight on side on. There's just no
Yeah.
sticky out knee. I don't know why that would make her like a negative, like an insult as the only person he's taken down. I don't know. Or actually, no. This is okay. Not a real
Okay.
person. It's not a real person. She's like a mannequin. She's a posable mannequin, except for the legs don't pose. The legs are stiff and static. You can pose the arms and the elbows, but the legs don't move. So she's no
Very
Denise.
appropriate. Barbie's coming out very soon. This
There
is
we go.
perfect.
This is like the mannequin Roman had in his room in school to like practice kissing on or something. Like, the only person he can ever take down is that doll he had in the corner of his room.
Mannequin 3, Roman's Prom.
There we
So
go.
there's Mannequin 2 on the move, of course,
Of
which is a
course,
great
of course.
movie. Do you have a favorite character in these movies? Not necessarily. It doesn't have to be in the movie that we're talking about tonight, but just in the franchise. Is there one character you're like, that's my guy, that's my lady, that's my person?
I love Deckard Shaw just because he's played by Statham and his name's
Right,
Deckard
yes.
Shaw. Like, it's just that's a ridiculous name. And I know I liked him more when he was a bad guy, I think. And I'm still not fully on board with the turn of him now being a good guy because he killed people and he took out
Yeah.
a hospital to go and
Yeah.
see his little brother. But it's Jason Statham, and I love Jason Statham, so
Well, I will say that Deckard is a character in the character quiz, which I think we're going to do at
I'm
the
not
end
gonna
of the
get him.
conversation. So you could get Deckard. We'll say you never know. You
I-
never know.
I'm-
We've gotten Deckard before, though. But
I'm not Deckard Shaw by a long shot.
you never know. The quiz, it generates some weird results sometimes. So you never know.
Yeah, I don't know which character I would be like, so I'm interested to find out how this quiz goes.
Before we do our conversation kickoff questions, Joe, I want to bring up my new segment for this lap, Crazy Credits.
Crazy credits, please. Okay, go ahead.
So, Jay, I recently found on IMDb there is a subtopic called Crazy Credits, and I was just like, what could this possibly be? This sounds amazing. And it sucks. It's terrible. It's just people describing the credits like...
Just literal descriptions of the credits.
It's not necessarily like after credits or mid credit scenes. Like sometimes that's there. Sometimes it's describing like the font or the color or like what's there. I don't know why it's called Crazy Credits. I don't know why there's not more for each movie. I grabbed for each movie for the rest of the lap. I have them all written down in my notes so I don't forget. Some of the movies don't have any of them. So just like, all right. So this one only has, Fast and Furious number 4 only has one crazy credit. It has 19 upvotes, 1 downvote because they're all user submitted. The end credits the end credits shows, comma, an animated version of the beginning of Dominic's escape from jail. Jail's capitalized. The end credits shows, comma, an animated version of the beginning of Dominic's escape from capital jail, period. 19 people found that helpful. 1 person found that
Crazy
not helpful.
credits.
Helpful for what?
Crazy credits.
Like, what is that helpful for?
We
I
don't
don't know.
know.
I have no
we
idea,
don't
Jay.
know. But they all have a ton of upvotes. It's like when we were like looking at other ones, it's all like 19 people find this helpful and like 1 person. It's like that's very common on how this goes.
It's wild.
Yeah.
So this is the CGI pistons and engines and everything going on. I think.
Apparently.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Which gave me a horrible flashback when I was at university. I did a computer aided design course where we had to at one point learn model up an engine in CAD and make it all work
Okay.
properly, and it was horrendous making it all sync up. So I had like flashbacks to this horribly animated CGI engine and pistons. And I was like, oh god, it's here, it's back there, I'm back there again.
No, not again.
All nighters. Ah.
I mean, as far as I can tell, that's as valid to add to the crazy credits. So some viewers of this movie may have done computer-generated crap, things in school, and they had PTSD. I find that helpful. Cool, very cool. Thumbs up. It's so weird, though. But crazy credits, man. Crazy, crazy credits. Okay, so now as a cyclist, you actually might have an answer for this that's tied to that or not. But this lap, so every lap of the show, every time we go through the movies, we have a different theme. The theme for this one is planes, trains, but no automobiles. And in between the Fast and Furious movies, we're watching other movies that are about like other vehicles, or there's a big chase scene from another vehicle or something like that. This movie, almost entirely cars. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But two different questions. Joe can ask one and I will ask one. My question for you is, do you have a favorite movie that is about a vehicle that's not a car? Could be like, there could be just like a chase scene, or there could be like an entire thing, but is there a movie that comes to mind that you love where like there's a main vehicle in it that is not a car?
I'm going to veer away from cyclists in this one because
That's fine.
cyclists in film tend to be arseholes and horrible people and villains. Think of like Premium Rush is a terrible film. Joseph Gordon-Levitt is an awful.
Do you like
cyclist in
Breaking
Premium
Away?
Rush. Breaking Away's fine. I think Breaking Away's okay. Yeah, I have no problem with it. It's fine. I haven't seen, is it like the Silver Streak or whatever what the Kevin Bacon cycling film is. I haven't seen.
Sure,
that.
yeah.
But Premium Rush makes me angry because he doesn't have gears or brakes on his bike and he's cycling in New York, so he's trying to die. He just has Spider-Man senses. That means he can see crashes and get through them, and he makes me very angry. I root for Michael Shannon in that film. Been thinking about Indiana Jones a lot recently, so there's like some tank fun and some motorbike fun in those films.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
Last Crusade's got a nice bike chase, and has that one got the tank, or has Raiders got the tank? I forget which one's got the tank.
I don't think Raiders has a tank.
Oh yes,
I'm
it's Last Crusade
misremembering.
because it's got like
Yeah.
the pen is mightier than the sword. You got Marcus. Yeah, so I'm gonna say Last Crusade. I'm gonna have the
Beautiful.
the tank chase and the bike chase in there. I suppose.
Love it.
And there's the tank chase in GoldenEye is always fun as well. Which is running around with half a statue on top of the tank.
GoldenEye's a good movie. Good game, good movie. Joe, hit him with your conversation starter.
What is the craziest credits? Just kidding. What is the what's your favorite vehicle you've ridden in or driven that isn't a car?
So it wouldn't be a car if that were allowed.
Exactly.
It wouldn't be a
Yeah,
car.
we predispose that. You're good.
Yeah, I'll stick with a bike. I love my bike. A Specialized Cross Trail.
Oh.
It's XL frame. I don't take care of it. It's a piece of crap. I beat it up every day. I oil it now and then. That's about it. So it breaks all the time. But when I often go to the cinema as a movie fan. If I go late in the evening and I'm cycling home at like 1 a.m. and it's pitch black and the roads are empty, that's heaven. Just I live in a hilly town. To get that nice crisp air. Just going for a bike ride at night time after going to the cinema it's a fun old time. So I'll take my bike and I'll take doing that. That's
Sounds
my favorite
awesome.
transport.
I think I've said it on here before. If not, this might be the first time. Who knows? It might be an exclusive. But like one of my favorite times ever driving a car is like if you're able to drive in New York late at night where you hit all green lights and there's nobody on the road, and like even not speeding but just going like the allotted limit but not stopping, it like you feels like you're flying through the city. Like it's a beautiful thing where it's just like you're never able to do this freely and to have that kind of feeling. So like even though it's not a bike, like I've had that same kind of like the city is mine right now. And
I've caught it. Cool. I've definitely caught New York with like there's some kind of holiday where like there's like nobody in the city. I know that sounds crazy, but there was some kind of holiday that there's like nobody in the city, and yes, that feeling like you're like the only person driving through Manhattan at the time is awesome.
Is it in 7 when they're driving through London?
6 is London. There's a London in 6. 7 is back in LA.
Okay, so yeah, in 6 then, like the London roads are never that quiet.
Exactly.
They've never have been. So that's the same kind of thing. I think it's just that driving around London, there is traffic on the roads in the race, but not nowhere near what it should be. So I think that's as close as you're going to get in these films to
I would imagine the answer to this question is yes, but do you have that thing where like you watch a movie that's like set in London and they cut from like it's like a chase scene, they're cutting from like one scene to another. It's like they can't get from like the West Side to like here in 2 minutes, the same way that like they do with like New York and like literally every city.
Yeah, I lived in London for a year, so I do get that. And like when Thor's on the underground in the dark world, he's like, oh, it's 3 stops to here. It's like it's not from there. It's not. You got to change twice. What are you talking about? It wouldn't be that difficult to just make this correct. Just change the name of the station you're on. That's all you need to do.
Yeah, very easy.
Everywhere should use fictional locations, like Lerner Airfield in Con Air. That's not just place. Like, so it can be anywhere you want it to be.
You don't know how big it is. You don't know how wide it is. You don't know anything. So like you're like, yep, that's true.
That issue you have in Thor: The Dark World, they do it in Gotham or Metropolis. Is like, yeah, that might be 3 stops. I don't know. It's not a real place.
Yeah, exactly.
Who cares?
There's a little bit of Chicago, there's a little bit of Pittsburgh, there's a little bit of New York here. Who knows? Who cares? But Jay, now the floor is yours. Anywhere you want to go. Favorite moments, least favorite moments, aggravations, questions. What do you want to start with? Where do you want to start with Fast and Furious 2009, the unofficial, official sort of
How'd you
reboot?
like this? How'd you like this as your second time watching it?
So when Joe was on Con Air, I mentioned that I remembered liking this film. I'm a heist film fan. I like heist films. I remember this has some heist stuff in it. It has a mission. I liked this film. You know, it didn't rise up the rankings when I watched it. It's kind of stayed roughly where it was, but it's got a decent plot to it. It's got the reunion of Brian and Dom, who they come around to being friends pretty quickly. Given that where they go in the future films, are like they're best friends for life in like the next film or by the end of this film, I think. Even at the start of this one, they're trying to almost kill each other. Or not. It's like halfway through this film, they're trying to kill each other. That turns around pretty quick. But yeah, I am on board with this film. I really liked the opening, the petrol tanker.
That opening's the iguana. The opening,
the iguana,
is top tier, right?
It is. Although I do think I look at it thinking like, well, I'm rooting for the villains here. They're just stealing some guy's petrol or gas. Like
they are the anti-heroes that you root for, but you know you gotta love them.
I think they're hurting the corporation more than the truck driver. So like I reason it out like that. Like if you're stealing from
worst case they're Robin Hooding, right?
Yeah.
I just need one line of dialogue where they say like, oh, this is from like that petrol company that's really evil. Just something like, oh, this was all stolen from this country. We're gonna take it back and siphon a little bit for ourselves. We're gonna take it back. I just need that one line of explaining it's all bad. That's one of the reasons why I don't like the first film. I don't remember liking the first film is because I think everyone in that film's a bad guy. I don't want to root for anyone in that.
Pretty much. So it's funny you brought that up because did you catch in 10 that this time that they like when they cut out of Italy they're like and nobody was harmed.
Yes, I love that. Like not a single person suffered one tiny scratch. If given that a bomb went off in
You know, speaking of Fast 10. I don't know if either of you have seen the new Mission Impossible film yet.
Not yet,
but
not yet, no.
There is a major scene in Rome, and I'm just like, oh, okay. There's actually like a shocking amount of like similar kind of like elements and set stuff and the things between Fast 10 and Mission Impossible. And as much as I love these movies, it's very good that Fast 10 came out first, because if Fast 10 came out after Dead Reckoning Part 1, it would have been like, oh, but we saw this better before. So, like, the fact that Fast 10 came out. But the other big thing, and I was glad to see him here, because this is, like, it's nice timing. Shea Whigham, who had just had a big role in the Spider-Verse, number 2. But Shea Whigham is also got a really big part in Dead Reckoning. And so to see him here as Stasiak, I'm like, oh, yeah, like, he's always been doing that thing. Like, and he's, like, I feel like he's one of the very few, like, I mean, there's a lot of character actors, but I feel like he's, like, the character actor for me, like, that's my guy. Like, where he pops up in things, like, I have friends, you know, like Larson and whoever who, like, love guys from the 80s, like, they can pick them out of it, but, like, for whatever reason, like, Shea Whigham, I think because of his character actor role in this movie, in this franchise, when he pops up in things, I'm just like, all right, nice. Good to see you working here. But he's got like a really surprisingly big role in Dead Reckoning. I'm like, all right, but he's, you know, still doing that kind of cop thing here. So do you have any, let's laser in on him for a second, Jay. Any thoughts on Shea Whigham, the kind of asshole-ish FBI antagonist to Brian in this movie?
Always happy to see Shea Whigham. I don't know, I think I first saw him in Boardwalk Empire. It's like one of his roles that he's got. And then when I which was before I saw Furious 6, when he's in 6, and like Brian comes back and punches him in the face again. I was like, oh, that must be a callback to something that happened in an earlier film. And what do you know, it was. I mean, I love him in everything. He's great in Kong Skull Island. I love the King Kong films, which is
Yeah.
a reunion with John Ortiz. He's in that too.
It's weird to see like John Ortiz like play because I've seen him in like in comedies and stuff like in the Braga role. I cannot see Braga as like a lighthearted kind of dude because he's like so kind of compelling as this kind of gangbang and drug dealer here. But Shea Whigham, man, love him.
Yeah, he's always great as well. He's one of those character actors that just makes things better. I'm sure he's in a lot of things, but I only seem to catch him in things that aren't great. He's in was the Cloverfield Paradox. I think he was in,
Oh,
which yeah, that film exists.
that came out. Somebody was involved in that making the movie that we just covered another movie that they did, and I'm like, Joe, do you remember this? He's like, no. I'm like, this was the movie that during the Super Bowl they were just like, this is going to be the best thing ever. It's going to be available as soon as it's over, and then we all watched it. And we're just like, oh, that sucked.
Yeah, that's a film that I'm not sure does exist. I don't know.
Maybe we all hallucinated it. That's a good.
No, this is the first time it's been talked about in like a couple of years on any podcast ever, I think. Yeah, which is a shame. But yeah, Shea Whigham is great in this. I love Shea Whigham. He's great at being an arsehole. He does it well.
I kind of like these guys because you get like comfort from them in the sense that you're like, when you see an actor like this, it's not like a huge actor. Like seeing them working, you're like, you know what, man, good job. You're like, this is a guy that I can relate to. Like, good job cashing the check. I'm happy for you, bud. Keep going.
I feel like the franchise needs a few more of these seasoned character actors in roles that keep coming back. There's not many, I think. Like, the team has all of the ridiculously attractive, multicultural. You just need, you have the likes of Kurt Russell, is like the next level up from a Shea Whigham.
I agree. Yeah.
I'm glad that you brought that up because there was something that I realized this time around. I feel like I noticed a lot of things this time around that I had never noticed before, and I don't know how that happened because it's the 13th time we talked about it.
Yeah, good.
But I feel like there are multiple characters in this movie that if this movie came out today, I think it's partly where the franchise has gotten to, but also just the way that like Hollywood does things. But it feels like there's a lot of characters here that if they were cast today would be stunt casting, but just like going to that garage where Dom almost drops the engine block on that guy.
Yes.
That like just like grease monkey like is just a nobody.
Yep.
No offense, like I'm not saying nobody condescendingly, but I've been like, oh, like that's that guy from that thing or whatever who like loves these movies. And then like Dwight, like the the redneck who loves speed, like he would have been somebody. And then like the other racers in that LA street race, I feel like would have been somebody. Or if they weren't like a known actor, they would have been given some kind of like Fast and Furious backstory. It's like, this is Elena's sister. But like there's all these characters in this movie that like just don't really have backgrounds and are played by largely unknown actors, and it just feels so different from where we wind up that I think you're right, Jay. Like there's something nice about having like where it's not just like Kevin Hart popping up because like he's friends with The Rock, but just like a really good, solid actor who can keep popping up and like just deliver the good. Not that Kevin Hart's not a good actor, but like they're casting him because he's friends with The Rock, not because he's like good in that role or whatever.
I'm not a Pete Davidson hater. I'm a Pete Davidson ambivalent. So like he exists. There's nothing I can do about that. But him being in Fast X feels like, why couldn't they have had anybody like this, like Steve Buscemi or something? Like he's in England, isn't he? So it should be like a Ray Winston type. Should have been like this old hacker.
We've talked about the whole Pete Davidson thing, and we're like, it feels like they got Pete Davidson, they did this scene, and then they were like, well, we have that Pete Davidson scene, and they're like, can we get rid of it? And they're like, well, it's Pete Davidson, so like, I guess not.
Do you think there is a faction of the audience that went to see Fast X because Pete Davidson had a cameo in it?
Because like we didn't know that he was in it until after we saw it, and like
it wasn't promoted.
I have a Google alert, and like it wasn't like Pete Davidson was at the premiere. Like, it's always been a dream of mine.
Does
to, like,
Pete Davidson have stands? Does he have like a fan?
Everybody
club?
has stands. Everybody does.
But I mean, like, is it anywhere near anybody else that would have like a strong fan? Like we know a lot of people on Twitter that respond to us are like giant fans of Michelle Rodriguez. Do you think Pete Davidson has a small, like, because I've never seen it? I
think anybody who's able to be slightly crass for a second, bed the number and the caliber of women that he has a large number of women who were in love with him.
Okay.
That there's something about his appeal and his charmingness and his behavior, and like people are like, oh, I love that Taco Bell commercial guy, or I love him from SNL or whatever, where they might not be like his number one guy, but I would imagine he's got a lot of like very devoted fans.
Like Jared from Subway.
Not like Jared from Subway. I think every celebrity now has
A fan
like
club, yeah.
yeah. I think that
Okay.
there's enough. Like he might not have an enormous fan club, and Michelle Rodriguez might be more popular than him. But I feel like I think to an audience of people that we don't necessarily run in with, like, but maybe like the TikTok generation or like younger, especially I would say probably women, probably do love him.
But let's picture that scene, plays exactly the same, but when they reveal the hacker, it's Paul Meany. Better reaction, better film, better scene.
I mean, you and Mark would have gone crazy.
Yeah, you'd have like a Star Trek fan base going nuts for that as well.
I don't like that's the thing. I think like in that scene that doesn't need to exist, like you need to have like some kind of like, oh hey, I know him, right? But like
Yeah, it's Miles O'Brien. It's
yeah.
Duncan Malloy. It's the pilot from Die Hard 2.
I don't think Cole Meany would sell even 2 extra tickets. He might buy one, he might go see it, or his,
Joey.
his mom or his wife, but yeah.
Joey, hear me out. Zeph.
I mean, Zeph should have been Little Nobody.
We know that, but I'm saying if he would have done this.
I don't want him in just that one scene because like the Pete Davidson role like is never coming back, right?
No,
like,
no, it's
like,
done. It's
like
over.
I want something like if Zeph's going to be in these, let's get him back in more than one.
Fair.
Who is Zeph? Apologies.
Zac Efron.
Oh, okay. Yes, that works.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
right?
I was trying to rack my brains. Is there a Fast and Furious character called Zeph?
We have a British friend who
no.
calls him Zephron. Do people call him Zephron in England, or is that just a thing that our one British friend calls him?
This is the first I'm hearing of it. So.
All right.
Okay.
So that's.
I mean, lots of things happen in this country I don't know about. So it could be I'm on the south coast. Everyone above London could call him Zeph.
Joe, is there anything that you recognized,
So
noticed,
much.
thought of this time? Go for it. Hit us with one.
We start this movie out and Dom goes, "We have 1K to go." And I was like, do you think Dom knows what kilometers are? Do you think he's ever measured anything in kilometers? Like, I think he knows they exist, but much like the rest of the American, like, public, I don't think he's ever used them as a measurement.
He lives life 0.4 miles at a time.
Yeah, exactly. He would have been like, there's like a half a mile to go, right? Like, why would he have said kilometers? This made no sense to me. It was appropriate for where he was, but I was like, are they? And then I'm thinking like, is this appealing to a global audience? But like, they wouldn't care the other way either, right?
And they're in America.
They're in the Dominican Republic, but
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes.
I mean, the thing that I noticed in the first scene is that within the first 90 seconds, Letty calls both Don and Han Bubba, and she pronounces it Baba. And I'm like, she's never said this before. I don't think she'll ever say it again.
Oh, she
Nope.
dies. Yeah. She knows it.
She calls, it's not like it's like a pet nickname for Dom where they both have a nickname for each other, because she also calls Han Bubba.
Is the amnesia setting in early and she's forgotten their names? Is this like pre-death amnesia as well as the post-death amnesia?
Ooh.
Is it just a condition she's always had?
So we thought that like the explosion with the nitro meth caused her amnesia, but she was struggling with brain activity even early.
It's a
She had
pre-existing condition.
CTE
Yeah.
from all the car crashes.
It makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Does make
Prey on
sense.
those.
I have a question for both of you. Have either of you ever been to a sexy gasoline party?
A sexy gasoline party. I'm gonna
Let
say
me think.
no.
Let me think.
Because I've never seen a sexy gasoline party before, and they're having a sexy party, but it's directly linked to them now having gasoline. There's like girls on top of the tanker, they're filling their cars up, and having a party. And I just didn't think those things would kind of overlap, but they did for the first time, and I was like, I wonder if this is the first time on film we've had a sexy gasoline party.
We start recreating Zoolander.
I
Shooting
really thought
everywhere.
Zoolander this time. I really thought Zoolander this time. I did. I really did.
No, I haven't been to a sexy gasoline party or an unsexy gasoline party. No, I'm sure they exist. I haven't had an invite.
Joe, have you been
Sad
to
about
one?
that.
No, never.
That's a bummer.
Maybe as a podcast, you should have like a live gathering and do the Too Fast, Too Forever sexy gasoline party extravaganza.
I think I would drink too much, and it would just be like a hazard, just a fire hazard.
There'd be a lot of rules, a lot of everyone being like searched for anything, any
You can't
lighters.
smoke. You can't. Yeah, you can't. Exactly. I don't think
Everything,
you can
everything
have-
anyone's wearing is flame retardant, and you have fire extinguishers
Yeah.
everywhere, like fire damping foam, like in the ceiling for the slightest bit of flame, and everything is coated in foam. It just becomes
Yeah.
a sexy foam party.
There's a thing I noticed in this movie that I feel like is a real testament to how far he's fallen. And I don't know that the movie does this intentionally. I mean, it might. I want to give it the benefit of the doubt. But when we see Brian early on in the movie sort of sticking out David Park or just trying to fit, like just doing his job, he's like eating that sad sandwich alone in his car. And I'm like, this is so, like, we rarely see characters in these movies eat other than Han or Roman or at a barbecue, right? But to just see a guy like having a meal alone and just like, this guy was having barbecues, he's having cookouts with like people who would do anything for him. Now he's alone in his car eating a sandwich at 9 o'clock at night. Look how far he's fallen.
It's like the cliche of the cop on the mission, like on a stakeout. It just like think
This
of
Yep.
American Gangster, where you've got Russell Crowe just eating having a terrible diet, watching Denzel living a high life, and like the French Connection films, Pompadour. He's not having a happy life. He's the cop. It's just a terrible existence, and the criminals are doing so much better than he is. So yeah, it's a cliche at this point, but I hadn't considered that. So I think that's a good.
I was thinking about it too because I've been watching a lot of the Cops channel on Pluto, and a lot of those cops definitely leave random weird sandwiches just on their dashboard as they drive around. So yeah, it is like in movies and in real life.
Yeah, like I think when I'd seen this before, I just thought about like, oh, that's just part of the job or whatever. But here, just thinking about like, because he seems sad and alone and like doesn't have anything going for him, and like to think, you know, even when Vince pissed Dom off in the first movie, Dom's like, we'll still put a plate together for you. You know what I mean? Like it's just like the whole, you're still family, you're still gonna get good food. We're gonna make sure you eat well. And here, just like a sad sandwich.
Is it tuna? Is it even tuna? Can he eat tuna
not.
again?
I hope not.
Can he think about tuna? Does it hurt too much?
It hurts too much. That smell brings me back.
Ugh, gross.
Han has a lady friend in the opening scene. Is she a character that's been in this before? Does she ever come back again?
Good question, Jay. She is a character, but from Los Bandoleros, the short movie that is the predecessor directly before this, right? Yeah, it's like Vin's self-directed short film. Yeah, and her name is?
Cara Mirtha, Cara Michelle, Cara. She's got different
Mirtha.
names,
Mirtha. That's what I was remembering. Yeah.
Her name is Cara. Technically, it's Cara, but she's also called Mirtha and stuff like that. Yes, but she was in very briefly. So for her to show up here, because like, if you think about if you transport yourself back to the cinema in 2009, you had just seen Tokyo Drift a couple years ago. Maybe you're watching these movies again to catch up. The last movie you see is Tokyo Drift. Han dies, and then he's in this movie. You're like, hold on, what? That's a real shocker. And then to also see Han, if you haven't seen Los Bandoleros, with a woman you don't know, it's like, what is going on? But that's a very good question.
Yeah, and the premise to that, Jay, is that they are like going there to steal gasoline too. So it's kind of like the prequel short film before this.
It's also really good. Vin Diesel directed it. Like it's worth checking out. It's 20 minutes. It's like maybe the best Letty that Letty's ever Lettied. Like
that's also true. Yeah.
If you can find it, go give it a shot, because I think it's something that like it's very grounded
like YouTube
in a way.
Too. Yeah.
It might be.
Does it almost make up for the short shrift Letty gets in this film?
Nothing makes up for the short shrift that Letty gets in any of these films.
But it's good.
I'm coming to this having like with 6 being my first film, the film where Letty comes back. So to me, there's never been any danger of like, hey, she's actually dead. And I'm just trying to imagine being a fan of these films and seeing the 4th one and like, wait,
yes,
she died off screen?
My first movie was Fast 5, in which the credit scene reveals that she's alive, and I'm like, didn't even know she was in these movies. You know what I mean? So it's like the same kind of thing where you're seeing her back against the family. I'm like, she's alive, but I didn't know she was in these movies. Like, these movies really make you think about like where you're entering, because nothing really makes sense. I have a question. This is a question that, Jay, even not being like the 13 laps in like Joe and I are, you could probably possibly answer this question, but something that was really sticking out to me this time, 2/3 of the way through the movie, when Dom and Brian have kind of reconnected and Dom gets shot and they go back to that house and they have Mia come over to tend to his wounds and she cooks them dinner or whatever.
Yep.
Whose house is that? what house is that? Like, that feels like a safe house kind of thing, because Dom's still wanted, so he can't go back to 1327. But it feels like there's such a, like, if you look at the walls behind Dom, there's like folders and files and books and papers and like all this history of life there. And it doesn't just feel like an empty space where he's like renting a place or whatever. It feels like that's a home, not just a house, but a home. And we've never talked about what that is, where that is. It's next to those like oil refineries. Like,
Yeah, there's the oil pump. Like yeah.
what is going on? Where is this? Whose is this? Why have we not been back there? Is he like, is it a safe house? Is it somebody else? Like, what could that possibly be?
They've broken into Stasiak's house, so they know that he's at work. He's on the job, so they know it's he doesn't have a family.
I think I have a theory that now that you brought this up, the first thing I thought was we often talk about how like Dom's kind of legend precedes him in a lot of these things. And I think that it's just a byproduct of like he knows everyone there. So if he's like, I need a place to hide, somebody that's in the street racing game is like, I got my aunt's old house. You can use that and crash there for a week. Like she's on vacation or she just recently died or whatever. And I think it's like a microcosm of that.
But like, what's interesting, and I think that's a better explanation than like, you know, the movie not giving us one, but like one ends, he drives to Mexico. There's the credit scene in one where he's just living in Mexico. We never see him come back. We never see him like palling around. We just see him like pursuing David Park here, right? Where like,
yeah,
he's in the Dominican, he's coming back, but it still seems like it's just strange. And I can't believe that we've watched this movie this many times where I'm like, how have we never talked about like what house that is?
He knows somebody everywhere, every country, every city he goes.
Exactly.
What's the distance between? What's like the average distance between people he knows?
Oh, like in the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon kind of sense of things?
It's like it got to be 2 that knows Dom Toretto.
So if he goes to, say, if he goes to Bournemouth and he knows me, say, how far has he got to go before he finds somebody else that he knows?
Like, probably not too far, because like you know, like to a certain extent, like you know, even though you say you don't know all of London, people could be calling him Zeph elsewhere. You don't know, like you know people elsewhere. Like, hey Jay, do you know somebody who like lives out here? Like, no, but my cousin knows somebody who lives out there or whatever, right? So like, I think he also like brings people in to trust him. So you know, if you love him, you're going to do anything for him. So yeah.
So he knows me and he knows everyone I know by virtue of knowing me.
And he knows everyone to begin with, so it doesn't. Yeah.
So he can get anybody will help him. Like he knows me, you know, my cousin, his old colleague, and his teacher. Eventually, he'll get to somebody who's useful.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I would say he knows you, everyone you know, and then everyone you're close to, everyone they know as well, right? So like,
and everybody vouches for him the whole way up the line too. You're like, no, that's a good dude. I've known him forever, or like Steve has known him forever. Yeah. He's a good. I
can't
dude.
Understand a word that he says, but I know him, and he's great.
Yeah.
My my wife hates these films, and we started watching this one, and she left like 20 minutes. It was like, I can't watch this, and she described an opening scene as it like Michelle Rodriguez was kissing a potato when she was kissing Vin Diesel. I just had to write that down.
That's really funny you bring this up because I was watching it, and this time I was thinking to myself that Gal and Vin Diesel have like a really awesome chemistry actually. That like we kind of like wash out as fans because we're like, oh, we like Letty and Dom together, but like Gal's replacement for Dom in this movie, like they actually have a good chemistry. Like Gal looks infatuated with Vin Diesel on screen, and it feels really weird to like think about that and say that with like her now coming back and obviously like they're not a couple, they won't be a couple, whatever. But like, did you feel this way too?
I was going to ask if people are fans of Gal Gadot in these films. I don't think she's very good in them.
So this is Gal Gadot's first real movie, and she actually, we read a quote on, I think, the last episode about like why, because as you saw in Fast 10, she's going to be back for, you know, the next movie, and she's like, this franchise means a lot to her because it gave her a shot when sort of no one else did. I think people love her and Han. I don't know that people love her specifically. I do. I know that people think she's beautiful. She's a model. I don't know that people love her, but I think it's kind of like she's just part of the grander narrative, and people love that, right, Joe? Or am I wrong?
I do think people really, really enjoy her, and I don't think that they necessarily, like Jay was asking, enjoy her specifically in here, but I think that she is a person, unlike Pete Davidson, that has a giant fan base. And so she's getting the love from that now in here, as opposed to liking her because of these movies. Even though they did, like you said, like this kind of made her in its own way.
She's never been a huge part of the franchise. She's in this one. She's in the fifth one, and she dies in the sixth one.
Correct.
I
Yes.
think. Yeah. So, but she's always like she's part of the team, but not like a main part of the. She's an integral player. Like in 5, she's driving the cars and things.
Yeah.
But she's not of the Brian, Dom, Letty.
No, she's not a core member, but she is like one of the first calls they make when they back up.
Sure. Okay. But when she's then not in the team anymore, it's not. I feel like the franchise isn't missing her. Han is missing her.
Correct, and people are missing Han when he gets killed, or quote unquote killed. But I think like the thing about these movies is that there's so many characters that like there's not really room to miss anybody who's gone because there's so many major roles that are still around. Like people
And
miss
they keep
Brian.
adding people too.
Like people miss Brian, but like we've never really talked about this, and I don't know how to say this without being like not offensive, but like mean, but like. I don't know that Brian is really missing from the new movies. Like the movies would be better with Paul Walker in them, but it's not like there's like we need Brian for this role. Like they figured out a way to like, tell stories without the characters that they've lost, either intentionally or through tragedy or whatever.
I remember when I watched the sixth one, like, feeling like they didn't know what to do with him. Then, like the side plot of him
interesting.
going. That's the one where he has to go undercover in prison.
Yeah.
So he can just yeah, and I just felt like this isn't really necessary for the plot. It's something for Paul Walker to do.
Well, especially when he comes back and he's about to tell Dom what he learned, and Dom's like, "Save it. I don't need to know." It's like
Exactly.
Well, he did this thing for you.
Not necessary, don't you? They do feel a little hamstrung that they keep on like, Brian's still, his character's still alive, and
She's
that means
babysitting.
Mia's not going to do a lot now because like then Brian will be hit. It feels awkward, and like I get they're paying respect to Paul Walker and bringing like his daughter in, and like they want to be nice to the character and to the actor. I appreciate that, but it's getting difficult to write around.
Anything else in particular about this movie? Things you love, things you hate, things you have questions about, things you don't remember specifically?
The line "You're bleeding on my floor" I read that as being a nice line. I just
It's a nice
thought the Shea Whigham scene as being a lot of fun.
That is a good one.
For some reason, I really liked the location when they had the name of downtown Los Angeles location being like on a window that Brian's jumping through. I liked that the text just kind of hung in the air. That's like a nice little detail.
It's nice when any movies, not just these movies, like utilize the on-screen text in a way. Like some shows and movies are very intentional and explicit about how they do that, and others just like choose a font and slap it on the screen, and just like you could have done a little bit
Something
better.
fun. Yeah, something fun. I get it.
When they're in the nightclub scene, like halfway through, all of the ladies just can't stay away from Dom and are just flat out ignoring Brian. And this feels like a Vin Diesel script edition rather than a Paul Walker script edition.
I've noticed this now too. How many of these places do people live above the nightclub, Joey?
Well, so Brian living in the Racer's Edge is not above a nightclub, but is like adjacent to. It probably also
close.
feels like Hector might live like in the Black Cat, Legato Negro, like that might be. So like there's two kinds of there. Roman and/or Tej living like on the water where it's not a nightclub but a party scene. It's close. Han definitely does.
He lives. Yeah, no. Tej definitely lives like above his garage, and the party boat is is the houseboat next to the garage.
Yeah, I think it's most of them. I mean, until they all become millionaires and just sort of like move back into 1327 or whatever. But I think most of them.
Can you imagine having like a nightclub under your house? I'd be like,
No.
you guys need to go home.
Yeah, a living
is-
hell.
Yeah, it'd be
No.
horrible.
Yeah, I feel like you need to be a regular at or an owner of that club to live anywhere near it.
But even
No,
like
no,
you know,
thank you.
your night off or whatever, right? Like.
All these fuckers are parked outside just blaring music in your parking lot all night. I'd be like, go home. Everybody leave.
My problem I have with the first film Okay, I don't like Point Break. Let's just put that out there.
Really?
Okay.
Okay.
I don't. It's the remake of Point Break with cars. It's like, why are you doing that with something worse? Fine. I don't. I never understood the ending. I don't get these guys on an emotional level. Like, why is he letting him go? Catch him, arrest him, do your job. So at the end of Fast and Furious, I don't get why Brian lets Dom go. And then in this film, they say, "Do you want to know why I let him go? I don't know." And so frustrating. And then later, it's like at that moment, I respected him more than I did myself. Like, that's not a good enough reason. I don't like that. That's a bad reason.
You've never had this? You've
No.
never had this happen in your life, Jay? That you like a person, and you know that they're a good person, but you know that the choices that they're making are bad.
I've never been in a position where I could arrest somebody. I'm
Not arrest them. I'm just saying, like, you've never had a friend that you're like, I get that they're fucking up all the time, but, like, they're a good dude. And, like, I genuinely like them, even though that, like, I know they're going against my morals.
I was brought up so square and so straight laced. My family is like my parents are bankers. My sister's an accountant. I'm an engineer. We're just my
Okay,
family
like,
is
so what if your sister's like, is like embezzling a little bit? Not enough, like not a lot, but she's embezzling a little bit. You'd be like, oh, come on, but it's my sister. Like,
Yeah, we're not that close. I get what you're saying, but I've never been in that situation.
I'm sad that you haven't. It's a pretty fun place to live. It is sometimes.
So yeah, it was just kind of unsatisfying. Like, I respected more than I did myself. Wasn't satisfying. And I'm sure you've talked about Mia saying she's saying goodbye to her only brother.
Mm-hmm.
Like, well, what about
Yes.
John Cena's out there somewhere?
And we know from F9 that she spent years talking to him past the time that he stopped talking to Dom. So,
Which
yeah,
is
extra
obviously
slap in
this
the face.
time. Probably
Mhm.
this time. Yeah.
So have you come up to any solution as to why she says only brother?
Because they didn't need to invent Jacob yet.
Or
Okay.
or I think Dom put a ban on mentions of Jacob.
Like he's dead to me, so I am your
Yes.
only brother.
Yes, yeah. Don't bring him up. He doesn't exist anymore. You only have one brother.
I can't see him.
Everyone, when Jacob shows up, they're like, Dom's got a brother? It's like, because he told nobody. You know what I mean? So, like, maybe it was just a unwritten, unspoken kind of rule. I don't know.
I thought this ended with the prison breakout, not 5 starting with the prison breakout, so that was kind of disappointing when they start driving
It
towards it.
ends
and
with
cut.
the start of the prison breakout, though. So, like, you get a little bit.
I then went straight to YouTube and watched it. Just
Good.
refresh
Yeah, you had to
myself.
get the rest of the end. Okay, good. See that? Okay, we're doing something here. You're coming along.
I kind of want to watch Fast 5 again. It's just there's so many films that I haven't seen.
Totally
I
fair.
need to-
Understandable.
Just finding the time. These aren't short films. This one's not too bad. Some of the 2 hours.
Yeah, this is the last one that's of the not too bad variety. Everything from 5 on is 210 plus. 2 hours, 10
Yeah.
minutes plus, like 130 minutes plus.
Like, that's why I
they
haven't
get
seen
long.
Red Reckoning yet, because it's almost 3 hours long and it's a weeknight. Like,
I know. It's the
and
kind
then
of thing where just,
Oppenheimer's
like-
coming out, and
Oppenheimer's also like 3 hours,
That's
right?
3
Yeah,
hours on the
yeah.
dot. Yeah, Dead Reckoning's like
Oh, God.
244 or something, but Oppenheimer's 3. Yeah. There's a lot of long-ass movies this summer, which is, good bang for your buck, but it's also like, let's tell a concise story. Also, like,
things
this
to do.
and Fast 10 and Spider-Verse, which are all 2.5 or longer, are all part 1 of 2. So they're all 5-hour movies, essentially, right? So,
Jeez.
I have podcasts to prep for that aren't about these films. How am I supposed
Also, too.
First world problems.
Joe, do you have any other thoughts, any other notes about this movie?
We didn't talk about what vehicles are in this movie, Joey.
Finally, at the end, a helicopter shows up.
That's fucking it, dude.
There's a petrol tanker.
There's the petrol tanker, and there's a bus, but those are both, like, in the neighborhood of cars. What I was frustrated by
Go ahead.
is Giselle is the motorcycle girl, and she's
No motorcycle.
in a car the entire goddamn movie.
I was trying to like invent ones, like when Brian like throws the skyline down the hill, I was like, is that a sled now? Because he's not really driving down the hill, he just kind of like throws it and it just slides down a hill. I was like, we could get close here. And like the dune buggy is like kind of it, like at the end they have like that truck that's like a dune buggy, and I was like, that's kind of close. But no, there's no other vehicles in this fucking movie, just helicopters. Also, this movie's so dark compared to like now that we just saw 10, and Jason Momoa is so colorful and so flamboyant, and they even shoot a lot of night scenes, but they're like bright and colorful. Watching this one, I was like, this is really dark.
Well, this one has more CGI in it than the other ones as well, I think. And that's how
It feels like that,
And that's
yeah.
how you hide CGI sometimes. Is you make it dark.
Mia buys Barilla pasta, which I don't know if you ever noticed Joe before, but I'm sure it makes you proud.
I'm a huge Barilla fan. Pro Barilla in this house, yes.
Jay, one thing that we always pay special attention to is in a PG-13 movie, you get one use of the word fuck, and we've talked about this movie that Brian says, get in the fucking car, come on, let's go. But what I did not notice that time, what I only noticed this time, was that it's ADR, like it's off screen. We don't see him say that, so they added that line in. They're like, well,
They were like, oh shit, we forgot to use the fuck.
We get one use of the word, we might as well throw it in. Or on Connor the podcast, bunny. You get one bunny.
Thank you.
Campos, quote unquote Campos, Braga, talks about looking for drivers. He's like, I don't want drivers who drive their 10-second cars in a straight line, but who push it. I'm like, then it's not a 10-second car. Like a 10-second car is built for one single purpose, is to drive a quarter mile as fast as possible. It's not like you're like using a 10-second car. I know that he's using it like colloquially, like whatever,
Yes.
but just like,
yeah.
you know, you got that car for that one specific purpose. I want people who were dumb enough to use it for a different kind of purpose altogether. It's like, that seems like a bad driver that you don't want on your team, man. What are you talking about?
You're just a bad manager. You need to find like more appropriate people to do this job.
Yeah.
I did appreciate that it wasn't a quarter mile race. That it had like a 5 mile race. Because the quarter mile thing is just it's always felt silly to me. Like that's no distance at all. A quarter of a mile is nothing. Like you could. If I can sprint that far, and I'm not that healthy of a guy, I think I could sprint a quarter of a mile.
What's the metric equivalent? Like a half K?
I think that's 400 meters.
No.
Is a quarter of a mile. I think.
2.2 kilometers in a mile.
I'm just saying, like,
so
in
it's
terms
like
of
half
like,
a kilometer.
402 meters.
So you mean when I said half a K and you said no,
it's
you actually meant
0.4.
yes.
It's under half a K. It's just under half a K.
But like, I'm just saying,
0.4.
like, you're not gonna be like, hey, I'll race you down in here that 420 meter right. That's like, no, you don't do that, man. Like,
you
if
might
you're saying,
say
like,
400 meters. There's a 400 meter race at the Olympics.
Sure. Good point. Yes. Good
That's
point.
running. That's not driving.
Sure. It's because it's such a short distance. It's not going to be a 400 meter driving race.
I need you to tap into your network of British friends and British colleagues and people and find out what they call a quarter mile race. Like what the equivalent of a quarter mile race is.
Do you know what it is? Oh, yeah, I don't know. We've never talked about this before.
I mean, I don't know. There probably is street racing in the UK. I've never seen it. I don't want to. So
we know that Rita Ora is in Fast and Furious 6 starting off street racing. You know, this is London, baby. Like, we got her doing it, right? So...
I'll ask my cousin to ask his teacher to ask his aunt who knows
Please,
Rita Ora.
thank you.
I will find out.
Appreciate it.
That knows Vin Diesel. Exactly.
Yeah.
The only other thing I want to say before we do the character quiz and play the Twitter game and then let Jay go into that sweet, sweet London night is, I think it's crazy. It's fucking crazy that Brian would bring Dom to the police impound lot. Like, he's a wanted man, and I know that no one really knows him or whatever, but, like, just be like, hey, I'm going to go drop this car off. I'll meet you back here. Like, I know it's just for story convention for the movie, but, like, the fact that he brings him to the police and just, like, they're not going to check here, man. But, like, leave him
Let's not
anywhere
even get
else.
close to a police station. Like, that's the last place he wants to be. I agree.
Because, like, the guy, like, you know, gets Brian's call sign or whatever at the gate and lets Brian in and then looks at Dom and then just lets him go. And I'm just like, why are you doing this? Why are you pushing the limits this way? I don't know. It's wild. Absolutely wild.
My one final note is a tiny little thing. There's the foot chase at the start that Brian's on when he's chasing the guy.
Parkour one.
Yes.
When he's on the roofs. Yeah.
When he body slams into the guy at the other side of the chain link fence. Beautiful move. I loved that move.
Pretty cool.
That's fantastic.
I was wondering this time, like, how does he do parkour in what apparently look like dress shoes? Like, he's not in, like, sneakers. He has,
Isn't
like,
he
his,
wearing
like...
a suit as well? Or like he's...
Yeah. The suit thing I could kind of get, because it's like... But, like, he would have to be wearing sneakers. He'd have no grip otherwise. He's jumping across roofs. This is crazy.
That's how impressive it is. He can parkour in dress shoes.
All right, Jay, you ready to find out which Fast and Furious character you are?
Dying to know.
Whether you're Deckard or someone else?
My money's on someone else.
Probably someone else. There is a 2.32% chance that you're a Deckard.
So if there's one question of are you British, I've got a chance.
I don't think there's very many British things here, but there are 7 questions, 6 multiple choice answers
Joey,
per question.
we really fumbled the bag now that Jay just said that. It should have been like, what would you be eating? Bangers and mash? Like, you know what I mean? Like, we could have, like, made it, like, just very obvious. Yeah. It's like...
All right, Jay. Number one, how fast are you? NASCAR, roller coaster, Lamborghini Murcielago, Toyota Prius, Vespa, or Razor scooter?
Okay, I feel like most days I'm Razor scooter, but I do enjoy a roller coaster. So I'll go for an average then of the Vespa is the one up. So yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
Sure.
yeah, it's kind of like a bike.
Actually, I would say
Yes.
a Prius is in between them. Like roller coaster 2 and Razor scooter is 6, so in between would be Toyota Prius.
So I feel like I'm close. I'm
you're
more
close to the
more
Razor
often
scooter.
a Razor scooter
Okay.
than I am a roller coaster. So I'm kind of balancing the.
So far, no points toward Deckard. That is not a
Okay.
good answer.
It's
We're,
fine.
we're over one so far. Number 2, you know it's coming. How furious are you? The Hulk, Kylo Ren, Christian Bale in that one movie set that one time, Mel Gibson, Charlie Brown, or Jack McBrayer?
Oh, I don't like to admit it, but I'm probably Christian Bale. I get pretty angry. When because we're not talking about on every day. No one's angry all the time. But
No, 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 no,
sporadically
no.
angry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But when I get angry, I think I get Christian Bale angry.
We're having a barbecue. How are you helping? Manning the grill, saying grace, kicking back with a beer, babysitting, being the entertainment, or sneaking a snack?
I think I'm all over that grill.
Okay.
I am often handed the tongs at other people's like barbecues.
That's like the biggest compliment ever. That happened to me on 4th of July at my buddy's house. Like, I was like standing there and he's like, do you want to do this? And I was like, yes. And I just threw everybody else off the grill and I was like, thank you. That's
I'm not
exactly what I
given the
wanted.
option. It's like, oh, you're here. Here you go. Here's the food. So, all right.
Awesome.
Question number 4. You've got time to kill. What are you doing? Are you grabbing a bite, working on your car, which we know that's not the answer,
No.
hanging with friends, drinking a beer, working out, or doing some work on your computer?
Probably go for working out, which 5 years ago I would never have said. But I've gotten into running quite a lot recently. So I'm just saying I'm going to do that. Yeah. Working
You're just firmly anti-car. You like bikes and legs. Jeez.
I feel like cars. I consider cars to be more weaponry than transport.
So do they. You fit right into this franchise.
That's actually why I think I enjoy the second half of these films, because I think cars should only be used when absolutely necessary. Like if you're driving to work every day, you've made a mistake. You should like move closer to work or move work closer to home.
Jay, describe your wedding. I'm never getting married. You mentioned your wife before, so I hope that's not the answer. It's just me and my partner. It's us and our families. It's a backyard country affair. Everyone I know is there. I don't remember.
I'm going to say ideal wedding would have been backyard country affair. So the actual one, we had more people than we had. It was a more extravagant affair than we wanted. Backyard country affair is what I'll go with. Although we did have alpacas and peacocks.
Jay, congratulations.
Peacocks? You had peacocks at your wedding?
They came with the
Jesus.
venue. Alpacas were our ring bearers.
Love that.
Wow.
That's pretty cool.
They were a surprise for my wife.
Somehow my brain heard that and just like, that's normal, no follow-up questions, so I'm glad that Joe stopped.
No, I had many follow-up questions. Thank you.
Jay, congratulations, you just won the lottery. What are you buying? Your own garage, a private plane, I'm gambling it all away, my childhood home, a fleet of cars, or a new life?
A new life.
Okay.
Taking some aspects of the current life with it, but a new life.
And the final question to determine it all now, what is your drink of choice? Belgian ale, Corona, something fruity, water, whatever's cheapest, or Joe's going to the bar, just get me one of whatever you're having.
Trying to think which one is closest to an Amaretto and Pepsi Max.
Pepsi Max is that common around as a mixer?
It's-
That's what I'm more curious
It
about.
is in my house. I'm drinking it right now.
Oh, okay, okay.
got 3 crates of it in under the stairs. Probably something fruity would be the closest to a spirit in a mixer.
Jay, I will say that you are not Deckard. You are right about that. Deckard's sort of middle of the pack here, but you are overwhelmingly. Any guesses? Overwhelmingly, who Jay is?
I'm going to guess like Gal. This feels like a Gal.
Or Giselle.
For some reason. Yeah.
Giselle would be the character name.
Yes, that's what I meant. That's what the answers felt like, Giselle to me.
I have no idea.
Joe is right. You're only the second
Right? Oh,
Giselle
amazing.
we've ever had. People underestimate you, Jay, because of your looks, but you are incredibly capable and calm under pressure. It's also funny that you're like, do people like Giselle in these movies? So here you are. You are a jack of all trades, and you can take on any task, but you prefer to be on the front lines. Sometimes you can let your abilities lead you down the wrong path, but when push comes to shove, you know who your true family is, and you're ready to put your life on the line to protect the ones you love. And you drive
like the wind blows.
And she's a motorcyclist. I'm a cyclist. That's close enough, I guess.
That was part of the thing. You said Vespa, and she rides motorcycles, so I knew that was definitely going to be high ranking, something fruity.
Who did Mark get out of interest?
I just looked him up. I was going to say, do you have any guesses on who Mark is?
Roman.
Close. Brian.
Okay, yeah, I can see that.
I am Mia. Joe is Dom.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, the final thing to do before we take a break, or no, I take a break, I mean, end the episode, is the Twitter game, Boy Do We Have a Podcast for You.
Boy, do we have a podcast for you. Come and check out our show. Yeah.
This is where we go on twitter.com, aka the Bird app, and find any tweet about the Fast and Furious, respond to them from @TooFastTooForever, and see if we get any feedback. I just realized, Joe, if you remember, I got points last time.
I do.
I got big points last time, which is very exciting because Jay, in spite of the fact that this seems like the easiest game in the world,
it's extremely difficult.
So I found Lisa Charlotte @Lisa Charlotte, who tweeted a picture of herself in a shirt that's a Suki shirt. New shirt, 3 weeks till Fast 10. Bring back Suki, you cowards. I made the meme. Sweet shirt, bringing Suki back is all we want. Boy, do we have a podcast for you. And it was the 3 billboards outside Ebbing, Missouri. 3 weeks since Fast 10 and still no Suki. How come Universal? And Lisa said, let me know if you ever want a guest. So far, that means 5 points for me for a reply. She did not like it, so I don't get the bonus point there.
No, you don't get the bonus point.
But 5 points. And then if she becomes a guest, we don't have a metric for that, but that's a lot of points.
So wins. You just
It'll
win.
be a lot. No, because this game goes on forever. It goes on for infinity, just like us watching the movies.
We've said like an email in is 10. I think
guess is 25
or 20 or 25. Yeah, probably 20 or 25. We'll figure that out. But
okay,
it's never happened before. But someone who has a Suki, like if you're out there listening and you have a Suki shirt, we want you on the show. So Lisa, shout out to you. 5 points so far to me. Joe, you found this is the one you played for charity. You found ALH Dami season at Emperor_Dami. Fast and Furious has to be the best movie franchise in the world. #FastX. We said we couldn't agree more. Boy, do we have a podcast for you. It got a like from Rob Denton, who is one of the guys who follows us on Twitter. So you got a like, but does not count, unfortunately. Yeah. Then, Joe, you also found your real one was for D90G7, who tweeted something that I cannot see, because this person deleted the tweet where we said we love Daniela Melchior in Fast 10 too. She definitely stole the show. Boy, do we have a podcast for you. And no idea what that was in response to because they deleted the tweet. Is their account still even around?
Not negative points, at least. Maybe Mr. Tweet broke it.
No, the account still exists, but they did not interact with your thing. Swing
0 points.
Sorry.
Okay.
And then Andy found Shea Serrano @Shea Serrano, best thing from each Fast and Furious movie, lists a thing from each movie. We said there's a lot to love about Too Fast Beyond the Title. Listen to our episode on Tuesday about it. Boy, do we have a podcast for you. We got 2 likes, but by Rob Dunton once again, and Dr. DC podcast Reed Vanier, who's been on the show. So unfortunately, Andy gets no points. Unfortunately.
Sucks.
I will say 2 things that I found via Twitter. One thing I knew about, which I was going to mention on the next Fast Lane, but 2 things that I've seen all over Twitter today. Number 1, in like the next batch of free games on PlayStation Plus includes Fast and Furious: The Rise of Shifter, that video game. So like if you pay for PlayStation Plus, you get that for free. So there's people tweeting about that. But also, I don't know if you saw, Universal Studios today, 4 hours ago, they are officially under construction on their Fast and Furious themed roller coaster. So out in Universal Studios Hollywood, there's going to be a Fast
it's
and
in California
Furious roller coaster now officially under construction, which I think we knew
I wonder
about
if
was
it's going
coming.
to be a roller coaster or if it's going to be one of the like the ride in Universal Orlando. I don't know if they're using the word roller coaster liberally, is what I'm saying.
I don't know, but Brazzle Dazzle Dad says, at Universal Studios, hear me out. Since Fast and Furious will be represented by this roller coaster, how about converting the supercharged portion of the tram ride to Back to the Future, where we team up with Marty and Doc to chase Biff through time and see the studio's backlot in different eras. So that'd be kind of cool to have like a Fast and Furious thing, but also a Back to the Future thing that's like in its place, because, both good movies.
Sure.
All right, Jay, did you find a tweet? Did you send me a tweet? Do you have a tweet that we're going to respond to?
I haven't sent you one, but I have got two options. One is from Night of the Living Podcast. Night's spelled with a K. I just clicked off of it. That was a silly thing to do. Hang on. Where did it go? Well, the other one I've got is Bruce Campbell. You don't know Bruce Campbell?
Okay.
He recently tweeted a minute-long video of himself with his face placed over the cast of the Fast and Furious. So the tweet is just me equals Fast plus Furious, full stop.
All right, so how do you want to respond to Groovy Bruce?
I mean, I'd like the standard boy to have a podcast for you. That's a nice, succinct way of replying. And here's the other one. Night of the Living Podcast, I found it. Their tweet is, Fast and Furious 1 to 4 had me wanting to risk it all in a street race. Movies 5 to 8 have me looking at my Honda trying to figure out how I'm going to use it to save the world and my family.
Very appropriate.
Anything you want to customize that, or you want to just on the standard thing as well?
This podcast could help you do this? I don't know.
It's even harder. It's even harder when you have a bike.
Yeah. There we go. At least you've got a Honda. Try doing this with a bicycle. Try doing this with a Schwinn.
Perfect.
Schwinn has two N's, is that right? Or is one N?
Yeah, two N's, right? Schwinn. Yeah.
Schwinn.
Hit us with your tweet, please.
It's from Mark at Kryze Skywalker, Kryze. I will certify myself as the biggest fan of Fast and the Furious movies if it's the last thing I do. I want to say, well, bud, you might be in contention, but I think we take the crown. Boy, do we have a podcast for you.
I do like that Joe's plan of attack on these is sometimes just to neg the person, be like, you say you like this thing? Well, shut up. We like it more.
Prove it. Come on our podcast.
Yeah.
Take us down.
So I found this thread. This guy, Brandon Strusnig, is rewatching the Mission Impossible movies and ranking them. And he said, you guys will kill me if I say 2 is my favorite so far. And then someone, Brian Schmid at Schmanthony P, said, I don't agree with this, but I also believe it's right to say it. If you need any deflection, I'd be happy to post my Fast and Furious rankings to get the heat on me. And this person said, please do. So Brian says, my Fast and Furious rankings, 679, 214, 538. See, he's got 8 in last place there, Jay, unlike your second place finish. Have yet to see 10, but people can get plenty mad at me there, LOLOL. And then I'm going to say,
that's too many LOLs.
You know what? It's hard to rank 9 perfect movies. Boy, do we have a podcast for you.
Excellent response, too. I like it. Good job.
When you do your laps through them, do you always stick with the same order?
We were going in chronological order, and now we go in chronological order. We were going in movie release order. But yes, once we hit chronological, we were like, I think this is the better way to do it.
Have you considered alphabetical?
They're all F, basically.
I kind of, some days I love, some days I hate the naming of these films. Just the utter inconsistency.
We don't have the same naming as us, though.
That's
the
what's
whole problem.
more infuriating. Yeah. But only on some of them, I think. Like Face of the Furious, we don't have the F8. We have the Fate of the Furious.
Oh, they stopped because you were like Fast and Furious 1 through 6 or 7. Our friend in England sent us this booklet that was about Fast and the Furious, and that's when we discovered that you had named like 1 through 6 just Fast and the Furious 1 through 6. And we were like, why the fuck don't we have that? And then just like this, within the month, we just discovered, what was it, Joey? Who owned the rights?
Roger Corman owned the rights to the original of the Fast and the Furious, and they licensed the rights to the first name, but not the sequel names.
Okay, fair enough.
So they had to, make goofy sequel names here.
Naming, like, we don't have Zootopia, we have Zootropolis.
Really?
Yeah. Because there's a English company called Zootopia, and there's some zoo here called Zootopia somewhere that no one's heard of. And so we have Zootropolis, And like the fifth Pirates of the Caribbean film is on Stranger Tides rather than Salazar's. No, sorry, it's Dead Men Tell No Tales here rather than Salazar's Revenge. I hate these stupid films being called different things, different countries.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
Anyway.
Thank you for staying up late and talking about this movie
Thank
with us
you,
and
Jay.
for watching
Always
this
happy
again
to.
for
I
us.
took a nap for this podcast.
Wonderful.
Appreciated.
What do you
Much
want
appreciated.
people to know about you or your shows? Where can they find you online? Where do you want to point them in your direction? Hit us with whatever.
So you mentioned at the start, Con Air, the podcast, has recently finished. Myself and Mark went through Con Air scene by scene, chapter by chapter. Joey was a guest, a wonderful guest. So we finished that. That's
Thank
done.
you.
I'm going to stop plugging it at various places because it's finished. And now we're refocusing on Deep Blue Sea, the podcast, where Mark and I went through the Deep Blue Sea trilogy, because there's 3 Deep Blue Sea films, scene by scene, chapter by chapter with some great guests. And we're now looking at Deep Blue Sea adjacent films. That's films directed by Rennie Harlin, or featuring sharks, or aquatic action. So we're doing like a Pirates of the Caribbean mini-series at the moment. We've recorded
fun.
one. We've recorded the first one so far, but there's like zombie sharks at some point in them somewhere. I can't remember. And we're hopefully going to have the two of you on soon to talk about Rennie Harlin's Driven, which seems to be the good crossover between the
Very exciting.
two podcasts.
We haven't mentioned it yet. That was a little sneak.
We haven't set a date for recording it yet. It's on the books. We'll do it at some point. Mark
Exactly.
and I have different schedules that change every day, so it's tricky to nail us both down sometimes. But there we are. So we're having a lot of fun. And if you ever watched a film and thought, "Hey, I wonder how deep and how blue that film is," then you should come and listen to the podcast, because I'll tell you. We had guests on who didn't know what that meant. Like, how deep and how blue is Die Hard 2? It's a ridiculous concept, but I worked it out.
Well, thank you once again, Jay, for joining us talking
Very
about
much
Fast
appreciated.
and Furious. Actually, going back a second, if you would suggest watching these in alphabetical order, would you count like the Fast and the Furious as a T?
As a former pupil librarian, I would count it as an F. Fast and
Then it makes
Furious,
it even harder. They're all
but
basically the
it
same
does.
thing then, man.
Well, I mean, Too Fast and Furious is the first
And
one.
do you have to count the numbers? Do you have to count with the numbers or the spelling of the numbers?
And would you also do Too Fast as the first or the last? If you're doing numerals,
Numerals are first,
it's
right?
the number 2, so it would be first. So I was trying to work this out while we were talking. I've only got 4 in. So currently it would be, you start with Too Fast and Furious, then you go to F9, then it's Fast and Furious with the ampersand. Fast and Furious 6 would be the 4th one, because that's got the ampersand. Then it goes back to being an A. So then it's 1, 3. Oh no, Hobbs and Shaw, because that's an ampersand. So that comes. Yeah, it's all over the place. Who knows? It's ridiculous. Don't do this.
It's chaos.
I mean, I always like a franchise to be released in alphabetical order, so you can get the DVDs individually and they all sit next to each other on the shelf in the right order. The first 3 Bourne films works perfectly. Identity, Supremacy, Ultimatum. Beautiful. Then they ruin
and then
it. So,
Legacy ruins it. And
So
then
I
just
haven't
called Jason
seen-
Bourne.
I haven't seen the 4th or 5th ones because I don't like to think they
You're
exist.
banned.
Well,
They're-
you can
yeah.
see them. You just don't have to buy them.
Bill and Ted, awful. When there were 2 films, it went Bogus Journey, Excellent Adventure. There's only 2 and it's in the wrong order. And then they have the 3rd one, which is Face the Music.
I
So
forget. What was it called? Oh, yeah.
So that fits in the right place. That fits 3rd, but it goes 2, 1, 3. This is it
This
doesn't make any
sounds so
sense to me.
Joey. This sounds so Joey to me. I love it.
So the Fast and
This is,
Furious
I can
thing,
definitely see you going on a tangent like this.
2, 9, 4, 6, 7,
Okay,
3.
so here, my final question. We've asked somebody on this recently. How would you file Megan? And would you do M3 again? Would it be before MA? Because on the case, it's M3GAN.
I think it would be. I'm trying to think because it would be near the Meg, but it would not be next to the Meg. Is the problem? The upcoming show on Deep Blue Sea, the podcast, on the Meg, and then the Meg 2, the Trench. I have to get a plug-in. Sorry. So yeah, I think it would be at the start of the M's. M3.
What, like MI? Oh yeah, but that's Mission Impossible. So like MI.
But that's a colon. There's
Mission
M
colon
colon
Impossible.
I. But then
there's colon rolls too. I
but
forgot.
The full title of those films is Mission Impossible 3. I don't think any of them are called MI3.
No, correct.
So that's, you can stick with the
Well,
MI,
like what's
that's
confusing is that there's Mission Impossible, Mission: hyphen Dead Reckoning Part 1, right? Like
Too
it's
much.
2 colons and the hyphen in the middle.
Do you
too
go
much
with the
punctuation.
title on the back or
No,
the
no.
title
For
it was?
franchises, I'm just putting them in order of how I watch them. Like I'm putting, and I also have Tokyo Drift after 2. Like I don't even have it after 6. Like I just have even for movies like, what was the one? I don't know. This is nonsense. Maybe Wes probably cares about this, but like even movies that have like a wildly different thing, like if it's part of a franchise where there's like a bunch of names that are the same thing, like I'll put it with that franchise, even if it's out of order or whatever. Because I'm just like, I'm not going to remember to find it somewhere else. I'm going to find it where I have the other 25 Fast and Furious things, right?
Exactly.
Fortunately, my James Bond films are in a box set. If they weren't, they would be distributed all over the place.
Chaos.
That's how it would be. It's alphabetized chaos, the best kind of chaos.
And my Jason Bourne movies are all in a box set as well. But I wouldn't put Jason Bourne in the J's. I would put it right after Bourne Legacy. So I would alphabetize. Not that there's anything going to fit in between with the Bourne, but like I put it Bourne Identity and then just the rest of it in order. So
I'm glad this podcast is over because I don't think I don't think I can talk about this anymore. This is
we could talk about it for a long time. Don't worry about it. I also did I think it was on the most recent, the final episode of Con Air or something, where it was like you were mentioning a movie and Mark's like, oh, I have it right here, but it was like an A and then there was like a W. It's just like you can't have all of your movies there. Like it doesn't make any sense. But he's like, I have all of them right here, and you're like,
I called him out on that. He had Venom like to hand and then an A. Something I can't remember the A film one. So that's no.
It was wild.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you once again, Jay. Our next main feed episode is going to be Terminator 2 Judgment Day, and then another Life in the Fast Lane, and then Fast 5. We've got bonus episodes of Snakes on the Plane and Shame coming up soon. I also want to give a very special shout out to our patrons. Cassie Wilson, Nick Burris, Alex Ellen, and Justin Kleiman, Brian Rodriguez of High School Slumber Party, Wes Hampton, Jerry Robinson, Dan the Duke, Hayden Renato DiDonato, Michael McGann, Lane Middleton, Lindsay Lewandowski, Nate Milton of the Kings of Sport, Jason Rainey, Tom Price, Mike Gallier, Josh Buckley of Whole Lotta Wolves, Michael Moser, Christian Larson, Tara Newan, Aaron Wolozin, Natalie Absolute, more on her later, and Jessica Collins, a.k.a. Montez. Thank you all for supporting us the $5 a month level or above. TooFast2Forever.com for everything with that and for all things. Oh, by the way, Discord popping off. We got the Discord up and running, the Family Watch Discord. We got new emojis in there. We got new roles in there. If you want to join the Discord, it's pinned in the Patreon. You can DM us on Twitter. We'll send you the link. Discord, good stuff over there. But for all things Too Fast, Too Forever, go to cageclub.me, facebook.com/TooFast2Forever, or at TooFast2Forever on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and, of course, Threads. Email us, family@cageclub.me. Check out our Patreon page at TooFast2Forever.com and our store at cageclub.me/shop. And come back next week for Terminator 2 Judgment Day. I'm Joey Lewandowski.
I'm Joe, too.
And that was Jay Cluitt of the Lambcast and Con Air the Podcast, and, most importantly, most relevant, newest, ongoing Deep Blue Sea the podcast, and we will tell you all about it
when we see you again.